I'm 60 years old. I've retired early, and I deeply regret it. I don't see that happen often. I was a financial advisor for over 20 years, but when I do see that happen, it breaks my heart. And I don't want that to be you. So let's talk about what factors impact people where they end up regretting retiring. I want to see you thrive in retirement. So let's talk about what happens. And the probably the main thing that happens is sometimes people feel bored in retirement. And yes, that can happen. I think many of us had parents that said there 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 are no bored people, just boring people. And so if we don't want to be bored, what can we do to give ourselves purpose, to give ourselves drive, to give ourselves excitement? So the number one thing is kind of a loss of purpose and people feeling bored. But the good thing is there's a lot of things we can do to prevent that from happening. And really it happens a couple years before we retire, ideally, maybe even a decade before you retire. Just thinking about what are things outside of work that get you excited, that you could plug into and you could invest more time in retirement. And the time to think about this is not the Monday morning after you retire, but the couple years, the decade before retiring. And really, job number one, I think, is really to use all of your vacation. As little vacation as Americans get, over half of us don't use all of our vacation. And mea culpa, I fell into that category myself as well. My company was very generous with vacation, and I didn't use all my vacation. And looking back, I think, what was I thinking? But the reason I want you to use all of your vacation is you can test drive things. You can do a mini retirement maybe. And maybe that mini retirement is only 2 weeks. Or maybe you could get a leave of absence, paid or unpaid, and combine that with 2 weeks of vacation and maybe get 30 days, 60 days, maybe 90 days. So that's the first thing is the lack of purpose and feeling bored. And again, the secret there is to plan ahead. The next one is frankly feeling lonely. And the reason people feel lonely after they retire is in many ways, at least at work, we're on a common team. We share a common mission. We have proximity to other people. Our desk is close to somebody else. And even if they're not our best friends in the world, we have this feeling of proximity to other people. We're in meetings. People are asking us questions. We're interacting with people. And if you're not careful in retirement, it's easy to isolate yourself. But this is probably many studies would show that this is probably the number one risk for retirees. If you isolate yourself, it has a snowballing effect and it can lead to depression, which then leads to more isolation, which then leads to a deeper depression. I should point out in all of this that of the hundreds of people that I helped transition into retirement, over 80% of them looked back and said, you know what? I wish I had done this transition early. Yes, maybe the transition was rocky, but now that I'm on the other side of the transition and I know what my new life is like in retirement, they can't imagine still working. And actually, many times people were like, Azul, I wish I had listened to you. I wish I had retired 2, 3, 5 years earlier. Unfortunately, when we're 60 years old, most of us have less than 1,000 weeks of healthy active time remaining. So while 20% of people may regret retiring early, 80% are really grateful that they were able to squeeze all the juice out of what I call the youth of their senior years. The other thing, unfortunately, many of us, I hate saying it, but many of us are going to lose our health a lot earlier than we think we will. According to the World Health Organization, the average American loses their health at just 66.1 years of age. That is just 13 months after when many people are thinking of retiring. So both paths, whether you retire early or you decide to retire normal age or later, both paths have their challenges and have their advantages. Obviously, the longer you work, the more you allow your savings and your investments to grow. There's a joke, I don't think it's very funny, but there's a joke in my industry that every year you continue to work past the age where you're already financially independent adds 3 more years of financial independence to your plan. And it's one year because you're working and you don't have to take money out. It's 1 year because your assets were able to continue to grow, and at this point, your assets are the largest they've ever been, hopefully, and so you have that base of money working for you, so you get an extra year from that. But the joke, the punchline is and the 3rd year that it helps your plan is because the stress is gonna kill you 1 year earlier. Like I said, I don't think it's a funny joke, but I do think there's a kernel of truth there. For many of us, our jobs are much more stressful than what we think. And having just retired myself about 7 or 8 months ago at this point, I can share with you it is true that that weight that my clients used to tell me that they felt lifted off of their shoulders, I can tell you I have felt that in spades. And like many of my clients, I would have told you, you know what? I don't feel like I'm under a lot of stress. Um, and I used to tell my friends, I was always planning on retiring early, in part because the men on my side of the family have health issues. We have heart condition issues. So I always felt, you know what, I probably don't have as long as many people, and I want to take advantage of the youth of my senior years. But when it came time for me to retire, uh, I thought, well, I have a job that I really enjoy. I'm good at it. I'm paid well. I like my coworkers, and I get a lot of vacation. Like I said, my company was very generous with vacation. So why would I retire early? And ultimately, I decided to retire early at 59 because I knew that 65-year-old Azul would be glad that 58, 59-year-old Azul had the courage to say, you know what? I've had a good run working. I've had a nice career, but I'm also going to enjoy retirement. And I wanted to get to the other side so I could enjoy retirement. But like I said, 20% of people regret retiring early. 20% of people regret retiring at normal age and look back and say, you know what? I should have kept working. But I do think that of that 20% that regret it, I think another 80% of those people can be happy in retirement, but they have to go through that transition. There's 4 stages to that transition in retirement. The first one's kind of that vacation feeling, and that can last anywhere from 3 months to maybe 18 months at the longest, where just you're enjoying, sleeping in, not having an alarm, not commuting to work, feeling like you're on vacation, but eventually that ends. And then the second phase is this feeling of loss. You gave up some of your friends at work. You gave up some of your purpose. You gave up your salary. That feeling of loss. And we have to get through that, just like the 4 stages of grieving. The third stage of that transition into retirement is iteration, where we're trying something new. We're looking for that purpose. Again, I encourage you to do that sooner rather than later. And then the fourth phase is acceptance, where you're now happy. You've made it through the transition. You found your next purpose and you're enjoying retirement. I want you to be in the 80% that is thrilled and excited to retire. And I also want you to enjoy my next YouTube video, which Google says this is the video you'll enjoy the most next. I'll see you in it. Bye-bye.